Staff Sergeant Leah Morgan opened her eyes to darkness. Her head hurt. Her mouth felt dry. She tried to move her arms, but they wouldn't budge. Panic rose in her chest before training kicked in. Stay calm. Assess the situation. Memories came back in flashes. Her reconnaissance team moving across the rocky surface of Vega 6. The sudden ambush. Strange weapons firing beams of blue light. Her teammates falling one by one. Then nothing. Slowly, her eyes adjusted to the dim light. She was in some kind of cell. The walls glowed with a faint blue pulse. The air smelled wrong, like metal and something sweet that made her nose wrinkle. Leah tested her restraints again. Metal cuffs held her wrists to a slab that wasn't quite a bed, but wasn't quite a table either. The material felt warm against her back, almost like it was alive. "Hello?" she called out. Her voice sounded strange in the small space. No answer came. Leah was the first human to be captured in the war against the Zarkoth. 3 weeks ago, humanity had made its first military push into space beyond their solar system. Intelligence suggested the insect-like aliens were planning to attack Earth. A preemptive strike was the only option. Now here she was, captured, alone, but still alive. A seam appeared in what she had thought was a solid wall. Light poured in, making her squint. 3 tall figures entered the room. Leah had seen Zarkoth in briefings, but never this close. They stood nearly 7 feet tall on 4 legs. 2 arms ended in hands with 3 fingers each. Their bodies were covered in a hard, shiny shell that changed color slightly as they moved. Their heads featured large compound eyes that reflected the light in hundreds of tiny mirrors. "The specimen is awake," one said. The voice came from a small device attached to what might be its throat. The translation sounded flat and emotionless. Another alien stepped closer, leaning down to examine her. Its face had no features Leah could read. No mouth, no nose, just those huge, multifaceted eyes and 2 antennae that twitched as it studied her. "Remarkable," it said. "Such soft external covering, no natural armor at all." "Inefficient design," the 3rd alien added. "Look at the limb structure. Only 4? How do they maintain balance?" They spoke about her as if she couldn't understand. As if she were an animal in a zoo. Anger replaced fear in Leah's mind. "I can hear you," she said, keeping her voice steady. "And I understand every word." The aliens stepped back, their antennae quivering. "It speaks," the first one said. "The translation device works both ways." "Fascinating." "I have questions," the second alien said, moving closer again. "Your species, why do you resist? You must know the Zarkoth Empire spans 17 star systems. We have conquered species far more advanced than yours." Leah said nothing. Her military training was clear on this point. Name, rank, and serial number only. But these creatures hadn't even asked for that. "Your silence is pointless," the alien continued. "We will learn all we need from your biology." It reached out with a 3-fingered hand and touched her arm. The touch was gentle but cold. Leah fought the urge to pull away. "Soldier designation?" it asked. "Staff Sergeant Leah Morgan, United Earth Defense Force," she replied. "That much was allowed. Purpose of your presence on Vega 6? Leah pressed her lips together and stared at the ceiling. The door opened again. The 3 aliens straightened suddenly, their postures changing. Even without understanding their body language, Leah could tell someone important had arrived. The newcomer was different. Its shell was darker, almost black, with red markings. It wore some kind of armor over its natural shell and carried what looked like a weapon at its side. "Supreme Commander Valdrek," one of the scientists announced, lowering its head. The commander ignored the others and stepped directly to Leah's table. Its eyes seemed to take in everything about her in one sweep. "So this is what we're fighting," it said, voice dripping with contempt even through the translator. "This is the species that thinks it can challenge the Zarkoth Empire." Valdrek reached out and grabbed Leah's face, turning it side to side. His touch was rougher than the scientist had been. Leah fought the urge to bite the alien hand. Only 2 eyes, with such limited vision, Valdrek said. Skin that tears easily, bones that break, no natural weapons to speak of. He released her face. How did such weak creatures ever leave their planet? The other aliens made a chittering sound that Leah realized was laughter. We have studied your history, human, Valdrek continued. Your species spends more time fighting itself than advancing. You waste resources. You destroy your own environment. You divide by meaningless boundaries. Leah couldn't help herself. Yet here we are, among the stars, just like you. Valdrek's antennae twitched. Temporary good fortune, nothing more. He turned to the scientists. Extract all useful information from this specimen, then dispose of it. I want to know about Earth's defenses, their fleet numbers, their weapon capabilities. Yes, Supreme Commander, the lead scientist replied. Valdrek looked down at Leah one last time. Your capture will be the beginning of your species' end. We will study you, learn your weaknesses, and then we will come for your world. After the commander left, the scientists began setting up equipment around Leah. Strange machines with pulsing lights and whirring sounds. What are you doing? Leah asked, trying to keep the fear from her voice. Preparing to extract information, one replied calmly. The process will be painful, but efficient. Leah struggled against her restraints. Our fleet will come for me. The aliens made that chittering laugh sound again. Your primitive vessels cannot detect our ship. We are cloaked to all your scanning technology, the lead scientist explained. No one is coming for you, human. Leah closed her eyes and focused. Fear wouldn't help her now. She needed to think, to plan, to observe and learn whatever she could about these creatures who thought humans were so weak. The scientist attached something cold to her temple. We will begin with brain scanning. Your thoughts will be processed and analyzed. Leah opened her eyes and stared directly at the alien. You're making a mistake. What mistake could we possibly make? We are Zarkoth. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. You think because we look weak, we are weak, Leah said. That's where everyone who's ever fought humans goes wrong. Before the scientist could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The harsh sound made the aliens' antennae flatten against their heads. What is happening? One demanded. A voice came over some kind of communication system speaking rapidly in the clicking, chittering language of the Zarkoth. The scientists looked at each other, their body language showing clear concern even to Leah's human eyes. Impossible, one said. They couldn't have tracked us. Leah smiled for the first time since waking up in the cell. I told you. You made a mistake. The ship shuddered violently, throwing the aliens off balance on their four legs. Lights flickered. The restraints holding Leah suddenly released. She didn't waste the opportunity. Years of combat training took over as she rolled off the table and grabbed the nearest weapon-like object, some kind of metal tool the scientists had been preparing to use on her. The lead scientist reached for an alarm panel. Leah moved faster than the alien expected, striking precisely at a joint where the hard shell looked thinnest. The alien shrieked in pain. You see? Leah said, taking up a fighting stance as the other two scientists backed away. Humans might not have natural armor or extra limbs, but we have something better. The ship rocked again with another impact. The aliens chittered frantically to each other. We have determination, Leah continued, advancing on them. We have ingenuity, and, most importantly, she smiled as the sound of human voices came over the ship's communication system. We look after our own. The two remaining Zarkoth scientists backed away from Leah. Their antennae twitched nervously as they chittered to each other in their own language. The ship rocked again with another explosion. What is happening? Leah demanded, holding the metal tool like a weapon. Your kind, one scientist said, the translation device making its voice sound flat. They attack our ship. Leah smiled. Her squad must have placed a tracker on her before she was taken. Standard military procedure. All Earth soldiers had tiny location chips implanted under their skin. The Zarkoth hadn't thought to check for such technology. I suggest you surrender, Leah said. The lead scientist, still clutching its injured limb, hissed something that didn't translate. Then it lunged for a panel on the wall. Leah moved quickly, striking again at the vulnerable joint between armor plates. The alien fell to the floor, making high-pitched sounds of pain. The ship shuddered violently. The lights flickered and went out, replaced seconds later by dim red emergency lighting. Alarms continued to blare throughout the vessel. Leah needed to move. She grabbed what looked like a weapon from one of the fallen scientists, a sleek metal device with obvious trigger mechanisms. She had no idea how it worked, but having it was better than nothing. The door to the lab stood open now, security systems apparently disabled by whatever was happening to the ship. Leah stepped carefully into the corridor outside. It curved gently, the walls made of the same strange material as her cell. Everything pulsed with dim light, as if the ship itself were alive. Voices approached, the clicking, chittering language of the Zarkoth. Leah pressed herself against the wall beside the door. 2 alien guards rushed past, carrying long staff-like weapons. They didn't notice her. Once they passed, Leah moved in the opposite direction. She had no idea where she was going, but away from the guards seemed like the best option. Her military training kicked in. Find an exit, find a communication device, or find a weapon. In that order. The corridor branched in 3 directions. Leah hesitated, then chose the path that seemed to slope upward. In most ship designs, the bridge would be higher than the detention areas. As she moved through the alien vessel, Leah noticed how different it was from human ships. The passages seemed almost organic, with no sharp angles or straight lines. The lighting came from the walls themselves, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. The air had that same strange, sweet metallic smell. She encountered few Zarkoth. Those she did see were rushing about, clearly responding to the emergency. Twice she had to hide in recessed doorways to avoid being spotted. Once she was forced to use the stolen weapon when a guard discovered her. She pointed and pressed what she hoped was the trigger. A pulse of blue energy shot out, hitting the alien square in its compound eyes. It dropped without a sound. The weapon worked differently than she expected. Lighter with almost no recoil. Useful information if she survived to report back. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Leah found herself in a large chamber filled with screens and control panels. The ship's bridge. About a dozen Zarkoth moved around the space, their movements jerky and agitated. At a raised platform in the center stood Supreme Commander Valdrek, barking orders. Leah crouched behind a bank of equipment, assessing the situation. Through the large viewing port at the front of the bridge she could see space, and 3 human battleships surrounding the Zarkoth vessel. The USS Defiant was at the center, its weapons ports glowing with energy ready to fire. "Return fire," Valdrek commanded. "Activate all defense systems." "We cannot, Supreme Commander," another Zarkoth responded. "Their initial attack damaged our weapons array. We have lost 50% of our shield capacity." "How did they find us?" Valdrek's voice carried even more menace through the translator. "We are cloaked, unknown, Supreme Commander, but they are hailing us." Valdrek made a gesture with one limb. A screen lit up, showing the face of Captain Sam Whitaker of the Earth Defense Force. Leah recognized him immediately, one of Earth's most decorated space commanders. "Zarkoth vessel," Whitaker said, his voice firm. "This is Captain Sam Whitaker of the United Earth Alliance. You have illegally captured Earth military personnel. Return our people immediately, or we will be forced to take more aggressive action." Valdrek's antennae quivered with what Leah now recognized as anger. "Your threats are meaningless, human. Even damaged, our vessel is superior to your primitive ships." "I don't think so," Whitaker replied calmly. "Our scans show your main power core is exposed. One more direct hit would cause a cascade failure. You would not survive." Leah saw Valdrek's posture change. The commander knew Whitaker was right. "We have only one human," Valdrek said. "A female soldier captured during an illegal incursion into our territory." "Staff Sergeant Leah Morgan," Whitaker said. And she was on a reconnaissance mission in neutral space as allowed under the Proxima treaties. Return her now. Valdrek made a sound that didn't translate. The human is being prepared for interrogation. We cannot simply... The human, Leah said loudly, standing up from her hiding place, is right here. Every Zarkoth on the bridge turned to look at her. She held the stolen weapon pointed directly at Valdrek. Morgan, Whitaker's face on the screen showed surprise, then pride. Are you all right? Been better, sir, Leah replied, not taking her eyes off the aliens. But I'm still in one piece. Valdrek's compound eyes reflected the red emergency lights as he stared at her. How did you escape? You underestimated me, Leah said simply. Just like you underestimate all humans. She stepped forward, keeping the weapon trained on Valdrek. The other Zarkoth moved away, none willing to risk attacking while she held their commander at gunpoint. Here's what's going to happen, Leah said. You're going to order your crew to stand down. You're going to surrender your ship. And then you're going to tell your empire that humans are not to be trifled with. You ask too much, human, Valdrek said. I cannot surrender an Imperial vessel. Your choice, Leah replied. But Captain Whitaker wasn't exaggerating about your power core. I saw the damage myself on my way here. This was a lie. But Valdrek couldn't know that. Leah kept her face expressionless, a skill she'd perfected during years of poker games in the barracks. The ship shuddered again as the human vessels fired another warning shot. Last chance, Captain Whitaker said from the screen. Surrender, or we'll be forced to destroy your vessel. Valdrek's antennae dropped flat against his head, a sign of submission, Leah guessed. Very well, he said finally, we surrender. Leah didn't lower her weapon. Order your crew to prepare for boarding. Earth forces will take control of this ship. You cannot take an Imperial vessel. One of the other Zarkoth protested. We just did, Leah said, her voice hard. Consider it payment for my inconvenience. Within an hour, Earth Marines had boarded the Zarkoth ship. Leah met them at the main airlock, still holding her stolen weapon on 3 captured aliens, including Supreme Commander Valdrek. Staff Sergeant Morgan, the lead Marine said, saluting. Captain Whitaker sent us to bring you home. Good to see. You, Lieutenant? Leah replied, returning the salute. I've got some VIPs here who need special accommodation. As the Marines took the Zarkoth prisoners away, Leah finally allowed herself to relax. Her hands shook slightly as the adrenaline began to wear off. That was some rescue operation, she told the lieutenant as they walked toward the Earth shuttle. How did you find me so quickly? Your emergency beacon, he explained. Standard issue for all special recon. When you didn't check in, we activated it remotely. Took us a while to track it through their cloaking technology, but we got there. Leah nodded. The Zarkoth thought humans would be easy prey. They've never been so wrong. As she boarded the shuttle that would take her back to the Defiant, Leah looked back at the alien vessel. Earth had just captured intact Zarkoth technology, a huge advantage in the war. And it had happened because the aliens had underestimated one human soldier. Their mistake. Captain Sam Whitaker stood tall as Leah Morgan stepped onto the bridge of the USS Defiant. The ship's crew broke into spontaneous applause. Leah felt her face grow warm at the attention. She wasn't used to being the center of focus. Staff Sergeant Morgan, Captain Whitaker said, stepping forward to shake her hand. That was some impressive work. Not many people could escape alien captivity and capture their ship in the process. Just doing my job, sir, Leah replied. Her uniform was torn and dirty, her face bruised, but she still stood at attention and saluted. At ease, Sergeant, Whitaker said. You've earned a rest, but first, I need to know everything you learned about the Zarkoth while you were their guest. Leah followed the captain to the conference room just off the bridge. Several senior officers were already seated around the large table. A medic approached Leah with a scanner. I'm fine, she tried to wave him off. Protocol, Sergeant, the medic insisted. You were exposed to an alien environment. We need to make sure you didn't bring back any unwanted souvenirs. While the medic ran his tests, Leah began her report. She described the Zarkoth ship, the technology she had observed, and most importantly, the weaknesses she had discovered in their physiology and tactics. Their joints, she explained, pointing to spots on a holographic image of a Zarkoth soldier. The armor is thinnest there, and they're not used to fighting smaller, faster opponents. Their combat style depends on intimidation and superior strength. Captain. Whitaker nodded, taking notes on his tablet. Anything else? Yes, sir. They're arrogant. They don't think humans are a serious threat. That makes them careless. The captain smiled grimly. An advantage we can use. The medic finished his scan and looked at the results with surprise. Sergeant, you have unusual readings. There are traces of an unknown compound in your bloodstream. Leah remembered the tests the Zarkoth had begun to perform. They said something about truth serum. Yet you seem unaffected, the medic noted, reviewing his data. I've always been resistant to medications, Leah said. My mother was the same way. The ship's chief science officer, Dr. Alan Park, leaned forward with interest. May I? He asked. The medic, who handed over the scanner. Dr. Park studied the readings, his eyebrows rising. Captain, I'd like to run more comprehensive tests on Sergeant Morgan with her permission, Dr. Park said. This could be important. Whitaker looked at Leah. Your call, Sergeant. Leah nodded. If it helps us fight the Zarkoth, do whatever. Tests you need. 2 hours later, Leah sat on an examination table in the ship's medical bay. Dr. Park stood before her, excitement clear on his face. Sergeant Morgan, you have a very unique genetic trait, he explained. Your body produces an enzyme that neutralizes toxins, including apparently Zarkoth compounds. Is that unusual? Leah asked. Extremely. I've never seen anything like it, Dr. Park said. It's as if your body adapts to foreign substances almost immediately. The Zarkoth truth serum should have affected your nervous system, made you compliant, and unable to resist questioning. Instead, your body broke it down before it could take effect. Captain Whitaker, who had joined them for the results, looked thoughtful. Could we use this somehow? As a defense against their weapons? Possibly, Dr. Park said. With Sergeant Morgan's permission, I'd like to synthesize this enzyme. We might be able to create a treatment to protect our soldiers from Zarkoth chemical weapons. Leah didn't hesitate. Take whatever samples you need, Doctor. While Dr. Park and his team worked, Leah finally got some rest in the quarters assigned to her. But sleep didn't come easily. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the cold alien stare of Supreme Commander Valdrek. She kept hearing his dismissive words about humans being weak and inferior. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Captain Whitaker. Sorry to disturb you, Sergeant, but there's been a development. We're interrogating the Zarkoth prisoners. Supreme Commander Valdrek is asking to speak with you specifically. Leah felt a chill. Me? Why? He wouldn't say, only that he has information he'll share with no one but you. Leah considered this. It could be a trap or a mind game, but it could also be valuable intelligence. I'll talk to him, she decided. The brig of the USS Defiant was a stark, clean space divided into individual cells by energy fields. Supreme Commander Valdrek occupied the largest cell. His dark exoskeleton gleamed under the bright lights. He stood perfectly still as Leah approached, his compound eyes tracking her every movement. You asked to see me, Leah said, stopping a safe distance from the energy barrier. The human who escaped, Valdrek said, his translated voice flat. You continue to surprise me. What do you want? Valdrek's antennae twitched. To understand. You were at our mercy. You had no weapons, no armor, no advantage. Yet you escaped and turned defeat into victory. How? Leah studied the alien commander. Is that really why you wanted to see me? To ask how I beat you? The Zarkoth have conquered 17 star systems, Valdrek said. We have faced species with natural armor stronger than our strongest metals. Species with intelligence that could calculate faster than computers. Species with natural weapons that could cut through solid steel. We defeated them all. He stepped closer to the energy barrier. But none of them did what you did. Leah crossed her arms. Maybe that's because you've been looking at the wrong things. You judge species by their physical strength, their natural weapons, their biological advantages. But humans don't rely on those things. What do you rely on? Adaptation, Leah said. Simply. Humans can't fly naturally, so we built planes. We can't breathe underwater, so we created submarines. We turned our weaknesses into strengths by finding ways around them. That's what you're up against, not our bodies, but our minds. Valdrek was silent for a long moment, then he said, "The Zarkoth High Command has authorized me to make you an offer." This was unexpected. What kind of offer? Information, Valdrek said. About the Zarkoth fleet heading for your solar system. Leah felt her heart rate increase. What fleet? The one that will reach your homeworld in 30 Earth days, Valdrek said. 500 warships, each carrying 20,000
soldiers.
Captain Whitaker, who had been listening from nearby, stepped forward. Why tell us this? Valdrek's eyes remained fixed on Leah. Because this human has earned respect, and because I offer a trade. The location and weaknesses of that fleet in exchange for my freedom and that of my crew. Why would you betray your own people? Leah asked suspiciously. I do not betray them, Valdrek said. I save them. This war is a mistake. My capture has shown me that humans are not the easy prey we believed. Many Zarkoth will die needlessly if this attack proceeds. Leah looked at Captain Whitaker. This could be their chance to save Earth. But could they trust an alien commander who had just hours ago been ready to torture her for information? We'll need proof, Whitaker said. And guarantees. Valdrek's antennae waved slowly. Of course. I expected nothing less from worthy opponents. As they left the brig, Whitaker turned to Leah. What do you think? Can we trust him? Leah thought about what she had learned about the Zarkoth. They value strength and respect worthy enemies. I think he's telling the truth about the fleet. Whether we can trust him beyond that? She shrugged. We'll have to be careful. Whitaker nodded. We've got 30 days to prepare Earth's defenses. Thanks to you, Sergeant Morgan, we might just have a fighting chance. Leah looked back toward the brig where Valdrek waited. The fate of her species might depend on whether a proud alien commander could admit that humans weren't as weak as he once thought. The next 24 hours aboard the USS Defiant passed in a blur of activity. Earth's Defense Command needed to verify Valdrek's information about the incoming Zarkoth fleet. If he was telling the truth, they had less than a month to prepare for an invasion that could end human civilization. Leah found herself in the unusual position of being both a hero and a valuable scientific subject. Dr. Park and his team worked around the clock to understand and replicate the enzyme in her blood that neutralized Zarkoth compounds. Meanwhile, military strategists interviewed her repeatedly about Zarkoth tactics, technology, and weaknesses. You need rest, Sergeant, Captain Whitaker said, finding her still answering questions in the conference room late into the ship's night cycle. You're no good to us exhausted. Leah rubbed her tired eyes. Yes, sir, just trying to make sure we don't miss anything important. Get some sleep. That's an order, Whitaker said firmly. Tomorrow we reach Earth and things will get even busier. In her quarters, Leah finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of everything that had happened. She had been captured, nearly tortured, escaped, and helped capture a high-ranking enemy commander. And now Earth's survival might depend partly on what she had learned. Sleep came slowly, but when it did, it was deep and dreamless. She awoke to an announcement. All senior personnel report to the conference room. Repeat, all senior personnel report to the conference room. When Leah arrived, the room was already full. Captain Whitaker stood at the head of the table, his face grave. We've received confirmation, he announced. Long-range scanners have detected a large fleet of ships moving toward our solar system. Their energy signatures match what we know of Zarkoth technology. A murmur went through the gathered officers. So Valdrek was telling the truth, Leah said. Whitaker nodded. It seems so. The question now is whether the rest of his information is accurate, particularly about the fleet's weaknesses. Have we decided whether to accept his deal? Asked Commander Grace Kelly, the ship's executive officer. That decision will be made by Earth Defense Command, Whitaker replied. We'll reach Earth in 6 hours. Until then, we continue to gather as much intelligence as possible. After the meeting, Leah found herself drawn back to the brig. Valdrek stood in the same position as before, as if he hadn't moved at all in the hours since their last conversation. Your people have confirmed the fleet's approach, the alien commander said as Leah approached. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Leah asked. Your posture, your expression. Humans display their emotions so openly. Leah crossed her arms. Why are you really doing this, Valdrek? Betraying your own fleet doesn't seem like something a Zarkoth Supreme Commander would do. Valdrek's antennae twitched. The Zarkoth respect strength. We do not waste resources fighting battles that cannot be won. I have seen what humans are capable of. What you are capable of. This war will cost too many Zarkoth lives. You didn't seem concerned about that when you were planning to torture me for information, Leah pointed out. That was before I understood, Valdrek replied. Before you showed me that humans possess strengths I had not recognized. Leah wasn't entirely convinced, but she nodded. The Earth Defense Command will want to speak with you directly when we arrive. I will tell them what I have told you, Valdrek said. The fleet can be defeated, but only if humans use the right strategy. 6 hours later, the USS Defiant entered Earth orbit. A shuttle transported Leah, Captain Whitaker, and a heavily guarded Valdrek to Earth Defense Headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. The Defense Council chamber was imposing. A large circular room with tiered seating surrounding a central floor. Flags of Earth's nations lined the walls. Dozens of military and political leaders watched as Valdrek was brought to the center of the room. Admiral Kate Nelson, head of Earth's Combined Defense Forces, spoke first. Supreme Commander Valdrek, we have confirmed the approach of a Zarkoth fleet. You claim to have information that could help us defend against this threat. Valdrek's compound eyes swept around the room, taking in the assembled human leaders. I do. Why should we trust you? Admiral Nelson asked. Valdrek turned slightly, fixing his gaze on Leah, who stood to one side with Captain Whitaker. Ask Staff Sergeant Morgan. She has seen what happens when the Zarkoth underestimate humans. I do not wish my species to learn this lesson at too great a cost. All eyes turned to Leah. Admiral Nelson nodded for her to speak. Leah stepped forward. The Zarkoth value strength and efficiency above all else. I believe Valdrek is calculating that more Zarkoth will survive if they avoid a full-scale war with humans. It's not emotional, it's practical. Admiral Nelson considered this. Very well. Tell us about this fleet, Commander Valdrek, and more importantly, tell us how to defeat it. Valdrek moved to a large holographic display in the center of the room. With surprising ease, he manipulated the controls to show the approaching Zarkoth armada. 500 warships, he explained, the largest invasion force assembled in 50 years. They will arrive in 27 of your days. The display zoomed in on one of the ships. Each vessel has 3 key vulnerabilities. First, the propulsion system. Second, the central command node. Third, the atmospheric generators. He pointed to each area on the holographic ship. Your weapons cannot penetrate our main armor, but precision strikes at these points can disable a ship without destroying it. Without destroying it? Admiral Nelson asked. Our goal would be to eliminate the threat entirely. Valdrek's antennae flattened against his head. Unnecessary destruction is inefficient. Disable the ships, and the Zarkoth High Command will recall the fleet. They will not waste resources on a campaign that cannot succeed. The council members exchanged glances. This was not the scorched earth approach many had expected. There's something else, Leah said suddenly, stepping closer to the hologram. Something you're not telling us. Valdrek turned to her. You are perceptive, Sergeant Morgan. These aren't just weaknesses in ship design, Leah continued, studying the highlighted areas. These are specifically weaknesses against human weapons, aren't they? Our missiles and energy cannons are exactly the right size and power to target these points. Valdrek's silence confirmed her suspicion. "This isn't a coincidence," Leah said, looking at Admiral Nelson. "The Zarkoth fleet was designed to fight someone else, some other species with different weapons. They're not optimized for combat against humans." A murmur went through the council members. "Is this true?" Admiral Nelson demanded. Valdrek's antennae twitched. "The fleet was designed for campaign against the Drell Confederation. The decision to redirect it to Earth was made recently and hastily. The ships have not been modified for combat against human forces." Admiral Nelson leaned forward. "So you're telling us that the mighty Zarkoth Empire is sending an unprepared fleet to invade Earth? Why?" "Because they believe, as I once did, that humans are weak and easily conquered," Valdrek replied. "They do not expect significant resistance." Leah couldn't help but smile slightly. The Zarkoth's dismissive attitude toward humans might be their downfall. "We have 27 days, Admiral Nelson said, addressing the council. 27 days to prepare our defenses based on this information." She looked directly at Valdrek. "If your information proves accurate and helps us defend Earth, we will honor our agreement. You and your crew will be free to return to your people with a message. Humans are not to be underestimated." Valdrek lowered his head in what Leah had come to recognize as a gesture of respect. "They will learn this lesson one way or another, Admiral. I simply prefer the way with fewer casualties." As the meeting continued, Leah felt a strange mix of hope and apprehension. 27 days to prepare for the largest alien invasion in human history. But thanks to one captured soldier and one alien commander who learned to respect humanity, Earth now had a fighting chance. 27 days passed quickly. Earth transformed into a planet preparing for war. Military bases buzzed with activity day and night. Factories worked around the clock to produce the specialized weapons designed to target the Zarkoth ships' weaknesses. Citizens watched the skies with a mixture of fear and determination. Leah Morgan found herself at the center of Earth's defense preparations. The enzyme in her blood had been successfully replicated and mass-produced. Soldiers across the planet received injections to protect them from Zarkoth chemical weapons. Military leaders sought her input on battle plans and strategies. Her first-hand experience with the aliens made her expertise invaluable. "How are you holding up?" Captain Whitaker asked her one evening. They stood on the observation deck of the Orbital Defense Station Alpha, watching Earth's fleet assemble below them. "Still getting used to all the attention," Leah admitted. "A month ago I was just another soldier, and now you're the face of humanity's resistance," Whitaker said with a smile. "The soldier who escaped alien captivity and helped give Earth a fighting chance." Leah shook her head. "I just did my job, sir." "Your modesty is admirable, Sergeant. But the truth is, without you, we might not have learned about the Zarkoth weaknesses in time." They turned as Admiral Nelson entered the observation deck. "The Zarkoth fleet will arrive within 12 hours, she announced. "All defense forces are moving into position. Sergeant Morgan, you're needed in the command center." The command center of Station Alpha was a massive room filled with screens, holographic displays, and dozens of personnel monitoring Earth's defenses. At the center was a large table showing a real-time view of Earth's solar system. The approaching Zarkoth fleet appeared as a cluster of red dots near the orbit of Mars. "There they are," Admiral Nelson said, as Leah and Whitaker joined her. 500 warships, just as Valdrek predicted. "Where is Valdrek now?" Leah asked. "In secure quarters," Nelson replied. "He'll observe the battle from there. If his information proves accurate, he and his crew will be released as promised." Dr. Park approached them, holding a tablet. "Final report on the enzyme treatment," he said. 98% of our forces have received the injection. They should be immune to Zarkoth chemical attacks." Nelson nodded. "Good work, Doctor." A communications officer called out. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Zarkoth fleet." "Put it through," Nelson ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a Zarkoth commander. His exoskeleton was lighter in color than Valdrek's, with blue markings instead of red. "People of Earth, the alien said, his words translated by the system Valdrek had helped create. I am Grand Marshal Kextor of the Zarkoth Empire. Your planet is now under our authority. Surrender your weapons and submit to Zarkoth rule, or face extinction. Admiral Nelson stepped forward. This is Admiral Kate Nelson of Earth Defense. Command. We decline your offer, Grand Marshal. Earth is prepared to defend itself. Kextor's antennae twitched in what Leah recognized as surprise. You refuse to surrender? Perhaps you do not understand the power you face. Our fleet has conquered, worlds far more advanced than yours. We understand perfectly, Nelson replied calmly. We also understand the weaknesses of your fleet, ships designed to fight the Drell, not humans. Now the alien commander's surprise was unmistakable. His compound eyes seemed to widen, and his antennae went completely still. How could you know? Kextor began, then his posture changed as realization struck. Valdrek, he survived, and provided us with very useful information, Nelson confirmed. I suggest you reconsider your invasion plans, Grand Marshal. This will not be the easy conquest you expected. Kextor made a sound that the translator didn't catch. Valdrek is a traitor. His information will not save you. The Zarkoth fleet advances. The screen went dark. All defense forces, prepare for engagement, Admiral Nelson ordered. The Zarkoth have made their choice. The next few hours were tense. The Zarkoth fleet moved steadily closer to Earth. Human ships took position, forming a defensive barrier around the planet. Leah watched from the command center, her heart pounding. Everything depended on Valdrek's information being accurate. If he had lied, if he had missed something important, Earth might still fall. First wave of Zarkoth ships entering weapons range, announced the tactical officer. Admiral Nelson gave the order, commence Operation Achilles. Named after the legendary warrior with a hidden weakness, Operation Achilles was the plan developed, using Valdrek's information. Rather than trying to match the Zarkoth fleet ship for ship, a battle Earth would surely lose, human forces would target the specific vulnerabilities of the alien vessels. The space around Earth lit up with weapons. Fire! Earth ships darted between the much larger Zarkoth vessels, firing precision strikes at the weak points Valdrek had identified. Special missiles designed to penetrate the thin armor around propulsion systems. Energy weapons calibrated to disrupt. Command nodes. Smart bombs that could target atmospheric generators. First Zarkoth ship disabled, reported the tactical officer, then another. And another. The Zarkoth seemed confused by the human strategy. They had expected Earth to attempt a head-on assault against their superior firepower. Instead, the smaller, human ships were avoiding direct confrontation, striking quickly at specific targets and then retreating. They're adapting, Leah observed, watching the holographic display. The second wave is changing formation to protect their vulnerable areas. Admiral Nelson nodded. As expected, Captain Whitaker signaled the fleet to implement Phase 2. Phase 2 involved new tactics to deal with the Zarkoth's adjusted formation. The battle continued, Earth forces constantly adapting as the Zarkoth tried to protect their weaknesses. 3 hours into the battle, nearly 100 Zarkoth ships had been disabled. Earth had lost only 20 vessels. The momentum was clearly shifting. Admiral, the communications officer called out. We're receiving another transmission from Grand Marshal Kextor. The alien commander appeared on screen again. His posture was different now, less confident, more cautious. How is this possible? He demanded. Your weapons should not be able to penetrate our defenses. Admiral Nelson simply replied, As I said, Grand Marshal, this is not the easy conquest you expected. Your ships were designed to fight a different enemy. Against human tactics and weapons, they have significant vulnerabilities. Kextor was silent for a long moment. Then he said, The Zarkoth do not waste resources on battles that cannot be won. I am ordering our fleet to withdraw. Relief swept through the command center, though Admiral Nelson maintained her composure. A wise decision, Grand Marshal. And may I suggest that the Zarkoth Empire reconsider its assessment of humanity's capabilities. After the transmission, ended cheers erupted throughout the station. Earth had faced its first major extraterrestrial threat and survived. Amid the celebration, Leah slipped away to the secure quarters where Valdrek was being held. The Zarkoth commander stood watching a screen that showed the retreating alien fleet. "Your information was accurate," Leah said. "You kept your word." Valdrek turned to her. "The Zarkoth value honor, Sergeant Morgan. I said I would help prevent needless deaths, and I have." "You'll be released soon as promised," Leah told him. "What will you do? Your people may not welcome you back warmly." "I will return and tell the truth," Valdrek said. "That humans are not to be underestimated. That they turn perceived weaknesses into strengths. That they adapt and overcome in ways the Zarkoth must learn to respect." He moved closer to the transparent barrier that separated them. "The Zarkoth Empire has existed for 10,000 years because we learn from our defeats, rare as they are. Today's lesson will not be forgotten." Leah nodded. "Nor will humanity forget the Zarkoth commander who chose cooperation over conflict." As she turned to leave, Valdrek said, "Staff Sergeant Morgan." Leah paused. "In another life, under different circumstances," the alien said, "I believe we could have been allies rather than enemies." Leah smiled slightly. "Maybe someday we will be." 1 month later, Leah stood in the grand hall of the Earth Defense Headquarters. Before her, Admiral Nelson pinned the newly created Star of Terra medal to her uniform, the highest honor for service to Earth. "Staff Sergeant Leah Morgan," Admiral Nelson announced to the assembled crowd, whose courage, resourcefulness, and determination in the face of alien captivity helped save our planet. When the Zarkoth mocked human weakness, she showed them human strength. As applause filled the hall, Leah thought about how the universe had changed. Humanity had faced its first contact with hostile aliens and emerged not just surviving, but victorious. The Zarkoth had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating other species, and perhaps most importantly, a path had been opened, however small, toward eventual understanding between two very different forms of intelligent life. All because one alien commander learned to respect the strength that came not from natural armor or superior biology, but from the uniquely human ability to adapt, overcome, and turn weakness into strength.